purpose of this movie is to demonstrate how to set up a simple project using variables, constants, and text boxes. We're going to create a very simple cash register which inputs a price, calculates tax, and outputs a total. First thing you should do is name your form. Always name your form properly, and that should be in what we call title case, cash register. Each word is uppercase. It's the only time you're going to create an uppercase letter for the first word that you're using for a name. This is going to be cash register. The first thing you should do in designing an application is to create and design your interface. So I will do that, pause the movie and replay it. Okay, here's our form set up most of the way. These are labels, and you can notice here that I actually didn't name these labels. I am never going to call these labels in my code. I don't want to name them. This is a text box. It needs a name. It begins with txt. This is quantity. Notice how they go together. Meaningful names are very important. txt unit price. These are also labels, and they do need to be named. So this one will be LBL PST, LBL GST, because I will be outputting to these labels. Therefore, they will be referred to in the code, and they need proper names. I simply turned the auto size off, and I set the text size to 10 or 12, and I gave it a border. This is a button named BTN Calculate, and the text property down here uses the ampersand, which gives it quick key access. You can see the underline here. Clear, this is BTN Clear, and the quick key has to be the L on clear because you can't have two C's. When you run it, for whatever reason, the underline isn't showing up, but here in the code you can see that you created it, and it is in fact working. Another thing you need to do is, while you're just setting up some housekeeping, is choose your form and set the accept button to the calculate button. So when I press enter, this code will run. You also want to set the cancel button to the clear button so that when I press the escape key, this code will run, clearing my form. One of the easy things to do right now is to code your clear button. So double click it, and as soon as you get into your code, you should notice you're missing your comments. So you should come up here, and if you do 3 apostrophes in a row, it brings this up. So you can type in your name and your project name and the date, and any other important info can go here, and that's worth a mark. So in your clear button, all you're going to do is clear everything. So 2 text boxes and 4 labels, and then you'll set your focus. So txt quantity dot text equals quote quote, and so on and so forth. It's also important to note that you can also make them equal to nothing, which does the same thing as clearing. I'll demonstrate why you need to set the focus here. If you run your project and you type in numbers, now we aren't going to get any calculations because we haven't calculated it, but when I click clear, I would expect my cursor to go back to the top, waiting for me to enter new information, and that's called setting the focus. So I want txt quantity to have the focus. So if I run it again and type in some numbers and click clear, pops my cursor back to the very top. As soon as you have text boxes, you need to code 2 more methods. One of them is the text change, and one of them is the got focus. And I will come back to those later after we actually have some numbers in here to demonstrate the use. So I'm going to double click my calculate button. And the process for coding a button that calculates an answer is actually pretty simple. Are there any numbers in here that do not change while your program's running? Yes, the PST rate and the GST rate. Those are not going to change. Therefore, they are constants. And these will be used with uppercase letters. And this is a rate, not PST, because there's a difference between 7 or 8% and $2.52. And it would be a double, and I believe it's 0.08. And it's underlined because we've got a constant that we aren't using yet. So create a constant for your GST rate, and it's 0.05. The next thing you need to do is decide what are you inputting, because you need a variable for every input. So I'm inputting a quantity and I'm inputting a price. Quantity is going to be an integer. You're not going to sell half of an object. But my unit price is going to be double because it's money. There is a type also, currency. But VB.net discourages it, so just go with double. We're going to input those. These are my input variables. Now, what am I calculating? In other words, what are my output variables? I'm calculating a subtotal, a PST, a GST, and a full total. So I'm going to need 4 output variables. So dim subtotal. Notice that I begin these with lowercase letters. And again, it's a double. And I will continue to add the other 3. And I just wanted to show you here camel case notation. Starts small, gets big. Every new word in here should have a, I could do that, but subtotal is its own word. Should have an uppercase letter, but the first letter must be lowercase when you declare your variables. Those are my output variables. All programs follow an input, process, output method. And again, if you just follow this method that we're doing now, it's very easy. Input. What am I inputting? I'm inputting a quantity and a price. So I've already created a variable for quantity. Quantity is going to equal the txt quantity. Therefore, my useful, meaningful object names work well here. So my unit price here, my next input, unit price is going to equal txt unit price.text. Now, this works fine. I haven't calculated anything, but I can still run it, and I can type in a quantity of 10 and a unit price of 12 and calculate, and I don't get any errors. But if I accidentally hit a letter or perhaps leave it blank and I click calculate, my program will in fact crash. And that is because this is of type double. And what I typed in here was not a double. So a quick and easy fix for that is to wrap those in the val method like this. And then if you accidentally do not type a number, it will convert whatever you typed to the value 0. Just to show you, if I try this again and I calculate, nothing happens. It doesn't crash. So when you're reading in numbers, always use a val, because this is a string that is being converted to a number. Processing. This is where you figure out your answers. Well, I need to figure out a subtotal. So subtotal is going to equal, common sense tells me, quantity times my unit price. Just because I figured it out does not mean that I'm showing it. All right? That's going to be my output. So down here I can say LBL, subtotal. Notice again the meaningful names, how useful they are, subtotal. And if I run my program now and I say that, I should see that, and I do. This would look even better if it was formatted to currency. In other words, to look like money. Running it. 12, calculate, now it looks like money. And you would continue on with your calculations. And this is all of our output variables with their calculations. Then you need to output them because we have places for them to go. You don't necessarily output everything you figure out, but in this program we are. And this is the output I'll put in here roughly for now. And if I run my program, 10, 12, I pick numbers that are easy. $120, that seems right. PST is close to 10%, so that seems about right. 10% would be $12, it's under that. GST is 5%, so half of 12 would be 6, that's right. And then 120 plus plus gives me that. These look awful, but you can wrap those in your format currencies and fix them up. And there they are wrapped in your format currencies. So now running your program, and one thing you should always do is test without a mouse, because that is what your instructor is going to do, and errors will be found. Notice your labels are all left aligned. That looks funny with money, so we can right away go and fix that. Go over here, control click to choose all 4 labels. And in fact, you could do your text boxes as well and find your alignment. Actually, I had to deselect the text boxes, and just with my 4 labels, text align, I want these to the right. Center right is fine. And again with the text boxes, it's not that urgent that I fix that alignment, but it's right here, and I want them to the right. So now if I run my program, and I can just hit enter to calculate, and that looks way better. And if I press escape, it should call my clear code, because we set the cancel button to the clear code. Now one thing to note is that if I now tab, 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 I can't just go and change my quantity very easy. I have to backspace. Notice now that I've backspaced and change it from 10 to 1, I still have all of my labels showing me answers, and they are incorrect at this point. And that's why we code a text change. If you change your text in your text box, clear any labels that now have misinformation. To do that, it's very simple. Double click your text box, and it's just LBL. You can actually just copy most of your clear code if you've already done it, and clear those 4 labels, copy paste, so that they no longer have the incorrect information. So running it again, 10, 12, there's my answer. But if I backspace, I now no longer see incorrect information. That's the one method you need to write for all text boxes, the text change. Your next method is the got focus. When I click or tab to a text box, I expect that text to be selected. Right now it is not. To write your got focus, simply click on the text change, go up here to your method list, and find the got focus method. And all you're doing is saying txt unit price dot focus. Running that. So if I type in 10, 12, get an answer, tab, 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 should have been set focus. Oh, sorry, this should be select all. My bad. I'll just get rid of the dot, which brings it all. Select all. There we go. So 10, 12, tab, 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 tab. See how it's all selected? And then if I type a number, everything's good. So I would have to do that for the quantity as well. The got focus, go up here, and it would be txt quantity, because that's what I'm in, dot select all. And that's all you do for got focus. You don't set the focus here in the text change. That's not what you're doing. All you're doing there is clearing misinformation. So just because I change this number doesn't mean I want to set the focus to the quantity. I'm just changing a number. Okay, and clearing and pressing. There is no quit here, so you have to click that for quitting. Now, just for fun, your form load. If you double click your form, it brings up the form load. This method this runs when you, the user, runs the program. So whatever you tell it to do in here, it happens. For example, me.backcolor can equal Alice Blue. So when I run my program, even though I didn't change it to blue here, when I run my program, it becomes Alice Blue. That's your form load method. And another thing we can do is if you double click clear, we can actually have something fun happen. So message box dot show clearing, and you can leave it at that. And if I click clear, even though there's nothing there, I get this message box popping up. You can make it even nicer. If you put in a comma, it tells you it's looking for caption. Cash register is the name of my program. That's what shows up in the title bar. I can give it buttons like VB OK, and I can give it an icon, information, for example. Running and clicking clear, and we get this. And that is the basics of writing a program with variables and text boxes. They all follow the same procedure we did here, so use this to guide you with all of the programs in Unit 3 and beyond.